From Trichomes.com, I'm Jason Kitamura, and this is Tech in Cannabis. I talk with game changers in the tech community to gain valuable insights into the future of the fast-paced cannabis industry. Today, we are joined by Danny Davis with Pharmatech. They have developed a SaaS model labeling system that's tied to crypto and uses NFC technology for quick access. Their hope is to make the cannabis industry more transparent with the ability to simply tap and view the step-by-step history of a product that you're about to consume, all the way from seed to sale. We talk about the power of crypto, along with how the cannabis industry is quickly evolving. All right, and today we have Danny Davis with Pharmatech. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Jason.
All right. So, just from the limited knowledge I have of your product, I know it's a kind of a newer product. I know it's a SaaS-based labeling system for cannabis. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's labeling is a part of it. The reason that labels are important is because right now you have two options. You have QR codes, which are batch specific, and you have RFIDs, which people don't really have RFID scanners like in their pockets. So we had to come up with a technology that will allow you to have transparency all the way through the life cycle. And what we realized is we could do it on the front end, and we could take an NFC chip and patent an application to do this. The problem is that there wasn't any software-backed systems that could then automate that process. So we built the front end, and then we decided that once it was patented that we would build the back end. So what we're building right now is that SaaS platform. We already have two very large, well-known beta customers that are in the cannabis space. But if we look at the technology overall, it's agri-tech. It's agricultural tech. And the 30,000-foot view, if you and I met on an elevator and you said, what does your software do? I would say, imagine a Chiquita banana sticker. That instead of just a sticker, you could take out your phone and tap it, and it would tell you what day it was harvested and where it was grown and whether the pesticides used, is it organic, when did it get to that store, what's the expiration date, is it pre-washed, right? Just the information that you as a consumer want to know. And on the back end, it gives that the back end data in a non-personal data. So it wouldn't be able to tell you that it was Jason. It'd be able to tell you that it was user 56342. And a heat map of that data. So it benefits both the consumer and the tracking for the back end. And then, of course, where we believe that this industry is going is regulation and standardization for regulatory. So that's what it is.
Gotcha. So, just to kind of clarify, the current status of it is you've built a technology for the NFC chip to be in the label, and you have a front end application where you can tap it, you can see some data. But right now, you're currently creating the kind of the back end system that's going to actually input the data of like the harvest time and the pesticides. Correct. And all that stuff. Gotcha.
Yeah, what we found, Jason, is that while there's a lot of supply chain management software out there, there's no supply chain intelligence, and those two things are very, very different. Management is, we have a bunch of data and we're going to put it into these silos. Intelligence is making those silos talk to each other and keep that data all the way through the life cycle. So I love that line. It's sort of my line, and if anyone wants to know the difference between intelligence and management, that's the main goal, is basically getting them to talk to each other.
Gotcha. From what I know, that you actually are putting this on Ethereum as blockchain.
Correct. So we, a lot of people talk about blockchain technology, or they talk about crypto. Crypto has become, of course, the platform where we see NFTs, and we're starting to see all this. I think that the next great resource that we tackle is food and agriculture. We've already attacked currency and content, right? If we were to do it again, I probably wish we would have gone the other way around. But now that we're starting to standardize and authenticate things like food, what's important is that we also authenticate the people that are providing that data. And one way to do that is to secure these transactions on the blockchain and provide some transparency and some logging. And what it will allow us to do, we could build the technology without it, but where it comes in handy is that if we continue to see data entered onto the blockchain that then is attempted to be changed or modified by groups consistently, we as a person wouldn't know without being able to analyze that data intelligently, we wouldn't really know. So if we apply some machine learning data to technology to that and look at that data, and they could do things like decipher, well, maybe this farm and this lab are working together to change data or modify data, or we need to put these guys in, we need to suspend these guys or give them red flag them or let them know that this is occurring and we're seeing it. And so again, going back to intelligence versus data, you could give me all the data in the world. The problem is humans are not good at deciphering data. We're not actually good at even seeing patterns. If you open up one of my favorite books, Freakonomics, Freakonomics said there's data available for all these different situations over our lifetime, but until you put it into a computer and have the computer tell you that, guess what, all that randomized data is actually not random, you start to make some really interesting finds. And so that's what we want to do. We just want to use as many machines that we can, because we find that humans are really good at service. Humans are really good at interaction and exception. May speak to a manager, all that sort of stuff, but they're not very good at deciphering massive amounts of data on their own.
Gotcha. And it's a huge industry right now, the data side of cannabis. There's tons of companies out there that are trying to aggregate this data from POS systems to back in, like farm management systems and getting all these numbers. So, I mean, one thing is, I guess maybe a little clarification, for those who don't know exactly what crypto does. But I mean, just from the limited knowledge I have, I mean, it's, uneditable kind of string, so it's more transparent, but transparency is kind of the key, where you kind of everybody can actually see the strings that are put into into the crypto. So that being said, you're kind of publicizing the data, but like what you said, like the data is kind of worthless unless you know how to aggregate it and use it and decipher it. But do you think a lot of these data companies are not going to like the idea of creating a public string of all this data, or do you think they'll be more into it because they can use this as another data source for their information?
Well, okay, so a couple of things just to keep there. Yeah. We don't actually publicize any of the data that we capture on the blockchain. We just capture the transaction. All we're doing is basically forcing them to sort of authenticate their data by submitting to the blockchain so that it cannot be changed later on. They could literally go back and change their data. We'll just see that anytime they submit. Yeah, anytime they submit to our platform, we see a change. If it's a change or a modification, we see it.
The Ethereum is basically holding authentication strings. The data is stored somewhere else.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct. Okay. So all of our data is stored in the private cloud, in our private cloud, and I'm a tech and data guy, so it's fun to actually be in cannabis and bring technology to it because a lot of it was very, very stagnant. I introduced the world's first filling system to cannabis, filling machines and capping machines, and it was a very primitive area, and I wanted to automate it. And so I did that, and I took that company public in the space, and we did well. The company still exists. I'm largest shareholder. But I wanted to take that automation another step and basically automate it for the consumer and for these companies on the back end. And so instead of data, we have intelligence. And what I mean by that is the farm data that goes into there actually goes to the lab, and it goes to the processor who's turning it into oil. We actually get to track what kind of extraction was done at that point. We could then take it to the packager and see, are they packaging in a clean room? Are they packaging in a warehouse? Are they packaging, how are they distributing this? How many people is it touching? One of the problems in our industry is people just buy wholesale oil and give it to their clients, and they have no data on that wholesale oil other than a certificate of analysis, or a COA as we know it, which is a testing facility just says, hey, it's 68% THC or 92% THC. It doesn't tell us anything about the farm data. It doesn't tell us anything about pesticides used or any. It doesn't tell us anything about the actual plant, other than some of the data on what's been extracted from it. And I think that that's wrong. And I think there's a lot of data that we lose up until that point. And so our goal is to work with some of the people who are already capturing this data. There's a lot of great companies out there capturing data. Our job is just basically to make those systems talk to each other and leverage them. So if you use a system like Blaze, for example, which we're big fans of. I love the interface. I think they're great. I actually think they're based in Orange County too, so I have an affinity for Orange County companies. There's a lot of them in cannabis. But I think it's interesting to take some of their data. I mean, if they're capturing, I don't know how many fields, but let's just say they're capturing 200 fields of data. I need 17 of those. And so I don't need all of them. I just need enough to where we can make those, make the data at the end of it make sense to both a consumer and a regulatory institution, and be able to track and trace that. And so my opinion is that I'm going to say something very, very profound here, and I might get pushback on it. I think with our software, it'll truly be the first time you actually have seed to sale data. And so everybody says seed to sale, but it's all nonsense, because I can tell you right now, there's no vape that I could pick up in a store and look at and it would tell me what seed it started out of, as, where it was started, when,
right.
any of this data.
I mean, there is a lot of seed to sale, but a lot of it has to do with benefiting the manufacturer
right.
rather than the consumer.
Right.
Yeah. It's so they can see their bottom line, see where bottlenecks are. It's not necessarily to give all that information out to the public.
Yeah,
so
I mean, Jason, you hit
right.
it on the head. The ambiguity of that phrase is sort of misleading, and we want to bring it to the consumer. By the way, we're not ignorant to the fact that just because you tell a consumer where they get stuff, that they're gonna use it all the time, or they're gonna not choose to use that product. I mean, we have a lot of people eating McDonald's every day, and I'm pretty sure we know what's in it, but we kind of don't want to know what's in it, type thing. So it may not change behavior, but what it does is it changes a level of trust, and that's what we're really
Absolutely.
looking for. I believe the three core problems in cannabis are transparency, authenticity, and education. And I think those three things, if they can be solved for the consumer, we open up trust to our industry, and the taboo nature continues to fade. I mean, it's gone down, and if we can get it to continue to fade, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as cannabis becomes more stream, legalization happens, and then more people from the outside of the industry start coming in. It like in the food industry, when there's something that's tainted or something that causes food poisoning or something, they need to trace it back, and something like that would, like your product, would definitely help with that. Because right now, if somebody's getting supply as like an oil or something from one specific farm or one specific crop, it's hard to determine which product is going to have it unless you have some sort of historical information on it. So
Yeah.
I think in the long run, when the big players are playing, and there's going to be some sort of regulatory requirement for this, and it's going to happen, because once it happens once, when there's a bad batch, they're going to enforce something, and then at least you'll have something already in place that can combat that.
Yeah, that's our goal, and that's why we actually use agritech. So instead of just saying cannabis tech or whatever, I mean, I look at this, my fiance's favorite use of this technology, because she's such a health nut and I'm not, is that lettuce, for example, romaine lettuce has a recall at Whole Foods or something. Why do we just throw our food away? Why couldn't we just take out our phone and tap it, and it would say, hey, this is not part of the recall, or actually this is part of the recall. Go ahead and take this back, and we'll get you a new head of lettuce. I don't understand why that's not already being put in place. I mean, we've seen companies attempt some of this. I think Nestle, Albertsons, IBM, a couple of big players are working with food, chain technology and food, sort of blockchain and food. There's a lot of applications there, but I think we're really simplifying it. I'd like to think that we're sort of food intelligence or agritech intelligence on steroids, because now that we have a way to connect it to the bottle, the problem that most of these companies have is they use a style of tagging that doesn't fit unique identifiers. And our entire technology is patented around being a unique identifier, and that's why the patent was granted to us. So we're not trying to patent an application for just batch technology. We were trying to do something for unique identifiers, so that every specific product has its own ID. And I don't know how many people know this, but in the state of California, they are going to require unique identifiers as of January 1st, 2022. So companies are going to be hard pressed to make a shift in that amount of time. In fact, our software won't even be done by then. So I'm interested to see how the industry reacts to it. But unique identifiers is the only way to move forward. And by the way, it's not something, we're not recreating the wheel here. Look at every electronic device we have on our heads that we're using on our desks.
Yeah.
Every one of them has a MAC ID. They all give unique identifiers.
Exactly.
It's not new. It's just not used in the right spaces. So, by the way, I will say also, sometimes transparency is frowned upon, by some of the people that necessarily don't want to give all this information. So,
Right.
yes, we may be pissing off some of the brokers out there that are trying to sell wholesale oil 4 different times.
That's exactly, that was going to be my next question. If you anticipate some pushback, because yeah, I mean, even in the food industry, or but especially in cannabis, a lot of people don't want people to know where they're getting some of their products. How are they reaching that bottom line is because they got a connection to a supplier that has it for the right price, and that's sometimes like the value in their business is these connections. So, but for the safety of the public, people have to know where it comes from. There's no way around it.
I mean, just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it, right? It's like the old
right.
Chris Rock joke. You can drive a car with your feet if you want to, but it doesn't make it a good fucking idea. So, the way that I look at this is I'm okay with there being brokers, no problem. Anybody that's out there, in this game and bringing it to the forefront, more power to them. The problem is that when they're doing it with sort of bad intentions or trying to be shady about it, I would just like it out there. So if you want to be a broker, great, be a broker. Just tell me all the details you can, and we're good.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I can see there being a little bit of pushback just in the fear on the broker side, because like a lot of times, if a company, gets news of what a broker's selling for, and they know they could undercut them, then they could just try to fight everybody that they're being supplied by and reach out to them. So there's going to be a little bit of fear, but I mean, it's going to have to happen at some point in time.
Well,
for sure.
I mean, I will tell you, what you just described seems like maybe it would be a good idea to also have a marketplace at some point. So something for us to think about as a company that we've discussed, especially when we're based on a Ethereum platform. It might be interesting to introduce a asset-backed cryptocurrency specific to agricultural tech, to where we can mitigate some of those unnecessary steps in the transaction.
And that was actually going to be my next question for you. Crypto in cannabis, like, do you see it playing a role in multiple ways? You're using it for the data side, but do you think that we're going to see a lot more of it in the transactional side? And
yeah, most definitely. I mean, look, as banks continue to give cannabis problems, we have an obvious option staring us in the face. And we see how standard, cryptocurrency is becoming. I mean, there was a ETF that was allowed to trade on the big boards the other day as a cryptocurrency ETF. Those are the types of moves that bring institutional investors. When you have institutional investors, that's when those prices and the demand and the stabilization start to come in. And so I think that the more we accept cryptocurrency as a standard form of currency, we're good. I saw a joke the other day. And this will put some value behind what we're doing. If we look at, I'm an economics guy as well as a biochemistry guy, and I love money because they always say it didn't have intrinsic value and it's based on faith, right? And so if we say that we base money on faith because there's a faith behind the value of it, a person posted on Twitter the other day, NFTs are complete bullshit. People should never have to pay for an NFT, because creating a bunch of artwork and posting it on another social platform for free is where the real money is at. So the irony here is that while we think something may be ridiculous because we don't quite understand why people have faith in it, what we should then instead do is look at why do people not have faith in the things that we traditionally are supposed to have faith in, like the dollar and these other forms of currency. And the reason is because as society changes what they value, currency then becomes either more or less valuable. And so if you have digital currency that allows people to complete transactions faster, easier, without involving a centralized bank, why would they not use this platform? I mean, it's almost silly that we're not 100% crypto. I mean, I don't even think you should use cash. Why not just go 100%? Why do you need the bank? You don't. But we've seen less than quality coins for our space. So unfortunately, we'd have to rely on something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, because if it's any of these other marijuana-based currencies, it's kind of silly. I think it's a better way to do it. I think we should standardize. And for the viewers out there or listeners out there, one other thing I'd like to add about Ethereum, Bitcoin is not a technology. It is a coin or a token based on blockchain technology. Ethereum is also a technology based on, Ethereum blockchain software. It just also happens to have a coin associated with it. So when people hear coin, it's both a currency and a technology, whereas Bitcoin is just a coin.
No, it makes sense. That's why Ethereum has so many applications that it can be used for in the future, like your tags. Now, what do you think the time frame is to be able to go somewhere and actually see a product with one of your tags on it? How far out do you think that we are?
So we already have some companies that are using our technology. You'll see a couple of press releases in the next couple of weeks here that there's a large grower, a fully integrated entity in the Midwest using our platform, and they're using it for a couple of different things. Full implementation of our software V1, we're probably looking at the beginning of first quarter next year, and we go, we'll go from there. Obviously, we'll have a product product roadmap that includes a bunch of stuff. We have an open beta, so something that we're doing that's unique. And I tell this to your viewers who are both launching a company or just trying to understand the industry in general. But the best advice I can give you is that I want to do it right, because the last way I introduced a company to the market was wrong. So last time I introduced a technology company to cannabis, I went out and built hardware and gave it to the marketplace and said, use this. And they said, well, it doesn't exactly work for what we need. And I said, well, it's the best option you have. Go use this. And we became very successful doing that. But over time, I realized that I should have done it the other way, and that's the way that we're doing it now. So at MJ BizCon last week, we spent a significant amount of time talking to partners and new potential brands and existing brands and all this. And we added 350 plus potential users and companies to our beta platform. And the reason we want to do this is I want them to break to fix it. I want them to break our software so we can fix it. And I think it's important that we get, enough feedback that we can build something intelligent rather than forcing something on the marketplace. And, a lot of product developers will tell you, don't get too many amounts of input, because then it's going to be all over the place. I'm not looking to make everybody happy all the time. What we're trying to do is make sure that the largest amount of consistency is there for the brands and the styles of groups that we use. Because remember, each module is its own group. So one module is a farm, one module is a processor, and the processor and the farm don't care what the data that the brand wants. The brand, unless they're fully integrated, they don't care. And so all the farmers, I want them on the application for free. All the testing companies, I want them on the platform for free. I want all the back-end users to be on the platform for free, so that we can literally help them drive the demand for this technology to all of the products leveraging these groups. And so that's our model. So we'll be a freemium model with a small subscription fee to the brands or to whoever's using it on the to consumer facing side. And then also we have our, we'll sell our tags as part of the labeling platform and go from there. So that's kind of how we're doing it. But yeah, the best advice I can give is listen to the audience first, instead of just trying to deliver a product. And the reason I say that is because I remember years ago, I had a sales team in my previous company, and I called the software company as a startup company. And I said, my salespeople would like to meet somebody out at a bar or a restaurant or whatever, and they would like to, or a trade show, and they'd like to start entering an opportunity right away. So they'd say, XYZ company interested in machine XYZ, reach out to them on Monday. And I said, but they can't do that, because you require them to create a full customer profile and then exit out of that and then go in and create an opportunity for them. And I said, that's just not how salespeople work in the real world. And they said, yeah, but that's not how our software works. And I go, no, I understand that that's not how your software works. That's why I'm calling you, because I'm trying to help you operate how the world works, how salespeople actually operate. And they just wouldn't change it. And they said, well, we'll add this to our list of changes. And what you start to realize is that these companies are engineers and technology guys building products for an industry they don't know enough about. They've never been processors
Absolutely.
or growers or any of this, and so we require a little bit of special attention in our industry because we've not got it. Many of our companies are underfunded because they can't get institutional investors. They can't, they're funded on family offices and VCs and friends and family rounds. They can't even properly launch a Series B or a Series C or sometimes even a Series A because the network for capital is not as big as it is for everything else. And so we're trying to do it right, and we're trying to make it easier for everybody else to see that, and then maybe that builds some momentum for more software in tech in cannabis.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's definitely the right way. There's a lot of people out there that build products for what they think people need, and it never works out. It never works out for sure.
Yeah, we see them repurpose all their products for cannabis. It's like we're an afterthought. Hey, we're a soil company. I'm sure your plants will grow in this soil. It's all dirt, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what do you think? I guess what do you think is kind of the next step for you guys once you kind of get the labeling system? I know you talked about potentially or hoping that it's going to be kind of a standardized thing. Do you think that's in the foreseeable future that you guys could be kind of the standard? What's your process in trying to push some sort of mandate for using this?
Yeah, I hope so. Hold on, my headphones just cut off, so I want to make sure I pop back on. They only stay on if I'm playing Warzone or something. Apparently, if I'm in an interview, they shut off. I think it's important for us to, yes, become a standard, but we got to make it work before we even think about standardization. It reminds me of you asking me if we should win the Super Bowl, and all I want to tell you is we just want to win the first game and then the second game. We do have a massive goal of standardization. Just because I'm a visionary, I'd like to think, and a big thinker, I'd like to think that we will be the standard. But most likely it'll be us working with other teams and collaborating with other companies to become some kind of standard. But I think for us, the most important thing to do in the short term is make this stuff actually work right. Work with all of our partners and our suppliers and all that to really build a cohesive system that gives transparency, because I believe if we do that, the demand will be so high we won't be able to keep up with it. The new problem that we'll have is that we don't have, our production on our tags, will have to open a new facility in order to print more. That's really the goal. And also, if I'm being honest, paying back those investors who trusted in us to do this thing in the first place. Because if we think about what happened in March of 2020, we were launching a consumer brand with this intelligence on it, and in March of 2020, and we had to, endure, like many other of these groups, a downturn like we've never seen before on the retail side of actually being tangible and physical in stores. And so while some companies flourished during that time, we did not. And so we had to pivot slightly in order to embrace the software side of our business, which is great. And it all worked out. But at the time, it was a very tough thing to do, to say, hey, we just put all this effort into building this brand and this technology. And what we found is that the technology is really the driver for the future, so that none of these other brands have to go through, these things where there's no trust in the product. And so I think that will ultimately help. And hopefully we can just continue to take care of them and move forward.
That makes sense. Now, just a question, curiosity, because I know, NFC tags aren't brand new. The other industries have tried to implement them, but, as far as putting them on consumer goods like consumables, they've always been a little pricey. But I know that the price has been going down significantly in the last couple of years. Do you think it's at this point it's a little expensive to put it on every product, or do you think that with volume you guys could get the price down enough that it'll be kind of like a no-brainer?
That's a great question, Jason. Cost for NFC is interesting, because when you talk about a product that sells for $40, if you're talking about a vaporizer cartridge or something like that, we're talking about, in some instances, less than 10 cents per tag. So for cost, it's negligible. If your business is operating on a margin that is 10 cents, that's like grocery store margins, on a can of beans or something, that is probably high. But it depends on what the product is, and that determines it. So I would say there's probably a price and margin calculation to be done each time that a company looks at this. If you look at maybe something like a bunch of bananas, you wouldn't tag every single banana, but to put it on a bunch of 5 bananas, it probably makes sense. If you're looking at, a 20-cent lollipop, clearly that doesn't make any sense because your margin would essentially be negative. And so, our price structure ranges anywhere from, below 10 to, mid-teens for different tags. And remember, they come in different, all different shapes and sizes. And, we're still trying to figure out which ones are always the best. There's very, very small tags. The problem is their signal is also very light. On smaller tags, the signal isn't as strong. So if you have a really thick silicone case on your phone, the last thing you want to do is go to a grocery store or go to a dispensary and have to take your phone case off just to see the intelligence of the product. So, I think if we do it the right way, we will have bigger tags for lower costs ultimately because we'll push the market. My thought is if we do this right, we'll be the largest user of NFC tags in the world if we do this right. Because I don't know of another entity that does it at that capacity for an entire industry. So we'll see. But I believe this might be the case. And also, Jason, I think NFC and RFID is just the beginning. There's another technology that's going to come, right? You look at Intel, genius companies like Apple. Look at the technology they're building into chips and things like that. So there's another technology that will come, and ultimately that will probably be the next standard that we try to adopt onto, which is maybe like a more powerful signal. Maybe it's Wi-Fi, or maybe it's GPS based. Maybe it can give off a larger signal, so you don't even have to scan them individually. You could put them in a bag and scan the bag, and it would tell you all of them. So I just try to think about all the different enhancements in the growth of the technology, and I think the demand will be there. The innovation will follow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting stuff. We're on the kind of the forefront of technology for cannabis, and again, just want to thank you for coming on. That was really interesting.
Sure,
stuff.
Thanks. I know, it was how labels are done is not always the most exciting piece of technology. So if you make it relatable and just say, hey, if I have a product in my hand and someone tells me that I need to recall it or that it's going to poison me, you pay a lot of attention. But you don't do that unless those things happen. And the best example I can give you of that is when you go put spices on your food, no one ever thinks about where those spices come from or any of that. They just put pepper on it or put salt on it or cinnamon or whatever they're making. But about a month ago, McCormick had 3 spices recalled from the racks of every grocery store in America. And if you go into any grocery store in America, you see McCormick racks, they take up like half of an aisle almost, it seems like, especially if you cook like my significant other does. And so now you have a new problem, which is 3 of those spices are bad. All of them are recalled. What does a consumer think now that they walk up to that aisle? They think, oh, McCormick, wasn't that the company that was recalled for those 3? Well, now I'm worried about all their products. Do they need to be necessarily worried about them? Probably not. But that stigma hits, and when it does, people start to go, well, I don't want to put that in my body. Now I'm scared. And this poor company suffers from them being actually efficient, on them actually saying, hey, look, we messed up and we're going to fix it. And, they have to do that. Well, who's regulating our industry? Who's making companies pull stuff off of our shelves?
And you're right. Yeah, if something happens like that, it's not going to be all put onto the company or the brand.
Right.
It's going to be put onto the source, or like you can drill down exactly where that came from, so people can feel safe about everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
so, yeah,
awesome. I appreciate your time and thanks for helping me build the awareness. Like I said, transparency, education, and authenticity. Those are the 3 things that we really, really care about.
All right. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Once again, I want to thank Danny Davis with Pharmatag for coming on to the show. And for all your cannabis news and for other podcasts like this one, visit us at www.trichomes.com. You can reach out to the show at Tech and Cannabis at trichomes.com. I'm Jason Kitamura, and thanks for joining us.